Good afternoon, everyone. As Morgan said, my name is Andrew Lawler. I'm the VETDSS Manager and School-Based Apprenticeship and Traineeship Manager at Box Hill Institute. I should mention just before we start, I know that you've got your cameras off and your microphones off, but if you do have any questions as we move through, if you could just enter them into the comment field and we'll get to them at the end. We'll read them out and we'll answer them one by one, so no one will miss out on asking their question. People will be entering through the lobby as we continue the presentation. That's fine. I'll try to do summaries if need be, but they can also ask questions at the end of the presentation. To give you a little bit of background on Box Hill and VETDSS, we've been operating courses for over 20 years now, and next year we're going to have our largest crop of students with close to 3,500 students coming from more than 250 secondary schools across Victoria. We have about 30 courses on offer, and you're here today to look at the creative courses that primarily are delivered out of our Nelson campus in Box Hill and our De Greve Street campus in the city. Look, Box Hill has grown by about 20 to 40% over the last 2 years, and that's testament not only to the popularity of VETDSS and how it fits in secondary school certificates now, but also due to the fact that Box Hill is very keen to wrap around services and support that adds value to students and to parents as well. Today, what I wanted to do was to just talk about the expectations that we have of you as learners and the expectations you should have of us, and make sure that we're all on the same page as we enter 2022. So I'm going to, in a second, I'll just get to my next slide. I'm going to turn off my camera at the moment just to preserve bandwidth because that seems to work better. But we are here today to discuss the creative courses: applied fashion, beauty, design fundamentals, interior decoration, makeup, the 2 versions of music, sound production and performance, and screen and media. Before I get into the housekeeping for the day, however, I did just want to spend a little bit of time about why you would select a VETDSS course in the first place. And I've listed 6 reasons here, and I'll just quickly go through it. Obviously, these are now part of senior secondary certificates, whether it's VCE or VCAL, which is great. They're highly flexible. They give students something different to study and align to an industry and occupation that they may well be interested in. So we, apart from just a secondary school subject, we also offer a nationally recognised qualification. And what that means is that you're undertaking a Certificate 2 or a Certificate 3 while doing your 2 years with us at Box Hill. And at the end of it, as long as you've passed all of your units, you will have your name on a certificate that you can take across Australia to any employer of that industry, and they will know straight away that you are a safe and competent member that can join their workforce. So really, it's a bit of currency or qualification currency, really. Behind that certificate sit the technical skills that we'll be teaching you. So VETDSS is much more hands-on than a lot of subjects that are theory-based at your school. And the aim here is for us to produce environments where you're using the tools and the processes that you would be using out in the real world. So we've made a considerable investment in infrastructure and also equipment, and you'll notice that in the Nelson campus, where we've got a new $6 million music recording studio, which is the largest one in the Southern Hemisphere and envied by Recording Australia artists all around Australia, should I say. We also have an investment of $200,000 going into MacBooks and PCs next year, so all of our design students have the latest technology as well. So again, we're a little bit differently financed to schools, and we provide different environments as a consequence. You will, however, be undertaking specialised industry knowledge or learning specialised industry knowledge, and that's achieved by our teachers being a little bit different to secondary school teachers. Rather than being able to teach a variety of subjects, they generally just teach one at TAFE, and they've got 1 foot in teaching and 1 foot still in their industry. So all of the developments in the industry get cascaded back into the courses that we offer and the insights that we provide as well. Plus, we have employers on our books that we can point you in the right direction for when it comes time to finding that elusive employment sometimes. As a consequence, there's employment opportunities. That's not just at Box Hill, but across the whole TAFE network. We're seeing a surge in demand. We really do have a skill shortages in Victoria as well as Australia. And so the Victorian state government and even the federal government have put a lot more money behind TAFE to provide students with the courses and the skills to be able to go out and get those jobs that are in high demand. So that leads to financial outcomes that are now outweighing the university sector. The first 1 to 5 years of a TAFE person's graduated life, they're actually earning more money than a university graduate given the same undertakings. So that's an interesting development, and one that I think is only going to grow, and you'll see highly skilled jobs becoming the equal of any university type jobs just with regards to a remuneration and work condition. And then, of course, there's pathways to further education as well. Whether you take a certificate at school with us or whether you come and do a diploma or an advanced diploma, we can path you between the different certificates and qualifications we have. We can even send you off to university in the first or second year of a bachelor course if you've successfully completed our diplomas. There's much more flexibility, and there's much more of a interrelationship between the education sectors at the moment. So that before, when I was younger, you just went to school, then you chose one of three. You're either working, you're at TAFE, or you're at university, maybe a fourth, you were traveling if you're lucky. But now you can experience all of those while still at secondary school, and have multiple qualifications when you finish your education and your study, rather than just one or the other. Now, just from a housekeeping perspective, I did want to speak a little bit about how TAFE is different to school, because although it's quite subtle to begin with, the cumulative effect can be quite profound, especially when we come to the end of the year and we're talking about whether you've passed or failed your units. So I need to make clear to you that when you come to Box Hill, you are entering an adult learning environment. So that unlike schools where there are bells and teachers hurrying you along, that won't take place at Box Hill. No one's going to inquire what you're wearing or where you're meant to be. It comes down to individual responsibility as to whether you succeed or not, and that only when you're doing what the right thing is will you be able to participate fully and get the best out of the course. So whether it's turning up to class on time, 5 to 10 minutes early, how you conduct yourself on public transport, if you're ready to partake in the practical nature of classes each and every week, that all comes down to your individual responsibility. And I can tell you that the people that don't make the jump from secondary school to the different environment of TAFE will really struggle this time next year when results are coming in, work's not handed in, and you will just be failed in the units you're not up to speed on. So please be aware that we are linked, our certificates are linked to employment standards. Certainly they're part of the VCE or VCAL, but you don't get a numerical grade, or you can't just get 50% or a B+. You need to be deemed competent in all of the units that you undertake, and that requires you to be prepared all throughout the year. Now, how schools and TAFE work together is another interesting one, and I think this is more aimed at parents, but it's also good for students to understand as well, because the relationship bears, I guess, examining a little bit. We don't deal with parents directly, and we don't deal with students directly from marking, attendance, and I guess at-risk comments. We give your school 24-hour by 7-day-a-week access to what we call the Box Hill Institute portal, and on that we arrange all the information that's updated weekly so they can tell how their students are doing. So if you've rolled in screen and media and your teachers at school's interested, they'll log on to the portal using their password and their username. They'll click on screen and media. They'll say, okay, I've got 2 kids from my school in that class. They'll click on your student name and they will start to see the details that you see here. The first thing that they'll see that's not on this screen, but it is another accessible screen to them, is attendance reporting. And this is hugely important. It lights up like a Christmas tree throughout the year. So every week when the roll is taken at the start of class, you'll get a green for having attended, you'll get orange for missing half the class, and you'll get red for not attended. If we look at this bar over time and we see more than 4 red colours, we know you are very much at risk of not being able to complete your course successfully, because the practical nature of it dictates that you're always doing something with your hands or of a practical nature during class, whether that's assessments, whether it's exercises, whether it's even rehearsal. So if you miss out on those windows to do those key items, you're going to very much put yourself at a disadvantage. Now, We will obviously at the top of the screen have an at-risk box, which we expand out and we put comments. If you are not turning up, for instance, and we see that for classes that you've missed, we will put an at-risk comment in there for your teacher to be alerted to. If you haven't handed in work, we won't be chasing you up and we won't be chasing your parents up. We will place it in this at-risk box. We will fully list what the unit is, what the work activity was, and what's still required. And that way your school will know to communicate to your parents or to yourself that you really need to make an extra effort. Just remember that all of our work is uploaded to a learning management system called Student Web. So while you're in classes, you'll be accessing quizzes on Student Web, you'll be uploading work, you'll be doing reading. And so there's a date stamp to everything that you do. Every quiz you take, how many times you took the quiz, what percentage you got. But we're going to keep prompting you until you get 100% because that's the standard that we require to give you the certificate at the end of the day. So please be aware that if you are on at risk, you're going to have to do catching up and going to have to be very firm about it with yourself as well. If you have a look down beneath that, you'll also see the units that we deliver in a given year. So each certificate 2 or 3 gets split up over 2 years mostly. There's two 1-year programs, but mostly they're over 2 years. And under each one, there'll be 7 or 8 units that we then mark you out of competent or not competent for. So you can see in the result here, this is an early education student, and they've done exceptionally well, and they've got a CO under the result area, which means that they've been deemed competent for every unit there is and every task that fulfills that unit. So really, you can't fail any aspect. You have to be observed to be able to practically pass all elements of the course. So hopefully at the end of the year, you see all the COs. If you fail and you get what we call an NY or NC result, you run the risk of not being able to go into second year, which might throw your senior secondary school studies into a tailspin because you will need that to successfully complete your VCE. So again, coming back to that individual responsibility, your parents and you will see your report cards. You'll see if you're competent. You've got to make sure all of those are COs and there's no at-risk work remaining. Now, the way the schools deal with this information is they can download it into their mid-year and end-of-year reports. You can see an end-of-year report peeking out down the bottom, and really all that is a drop-down list of 8 to 10 behavioural competencies that we want that we grade from poor to excellent. So again, mid-year, you're looking for all excellence. You don't want to be all poor because again, it means that you're at risk of failing the subject or failing the units. There will also be a written note by your tutor, and that will all go into your school report as well. So please pay attention to those. The last thing that I should make you aware of is that there's a contract called a learner commitment, and this is for any behavioural issues that we have a problem with. So if you're not fitting into an adult environment and behaving as is expected, and there's a student code of policy, we will draw your attention to it, and if it's significant enough to alarm us, what we will do is we will write up this contract, we will detail the behaviours that are in error, and we'll suggest behaviours that should be replaced and what they could be in a positive fashion. You will be asked to sign that, your parents will be asked to sign that, so too your school, and so too will I. So it's a serious undertaking, it's a shot across your bow saying things need to change and change rapidly, and once we review it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks time, if you haven't met all of those clauses within that commitment, you'll be asked to leave that program. And we unfortunately do that to a number of students each year. So please be aware to take that as a serious experience and to treat it with the respect it deserves and to make sure the improvements are there that we're looking for. Now, on to the actual programs that you're here for. I did want to spend a little bit of time because we have different levels of knowledge. A lot of students are well across how VCE and VCAL work. Some parents are fully across it and some are just getting introduced it. Some have had children that have gone through before, some this is your first child. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on VCE and VCAL. In particular, VCE to begin with. So you undertake this as well, there's 2 options, a scored assessment or an unscored assessment. Most students opt for the scored assessment because they're chasing that ATAR at the end of the year, and they might want to, well, it doesn't matter what they want to do, they want the ATAR. So Then there's another group of students that they want to undertake the subjects but don't want an ATAR, and they're what we call non-scored. So they can just appear at the start of next year and they can tell their tutor, hey, I'm doing a scored assessment program. I don't need an ATAR. My school's confirmed that. My parents are happy with that. I won't do the exam at the end of the year, and that's fine. But if you have made that determination at the start of the year, you can't change it midway through. It's not something that we can go back on. Now, with regards to using these subjects for VCE first, there's two ways that we can use them. There's two distinct products here. There is what we call a scored assessment, which can be used like any other Year 12 subject. It can be used in your top 4, or it can be used as your 5th or 6th subject. And we have non-scored subjects, which can only be used as your 5th or 6th subject. Okay, so I'll go through each of these programs and I'll tell you what they are. It's your responsibility as a student to make sure that that suits what your objective is as part of your VCE. So if you want to maximize your ATAR, well, scored assessment programs that give you another score that can go into your top 4 makes a lot of sense. But if you're being strategic and know, oh, hang on, I'm going to do best by doing these 5 subjects at school, this will be my 5th or 6th subject, maybe you choose a non-scored subject and then just use it as a 10% kicker. So I'll go through. Applied fashion is not a primary subject. It can only be used as a 5th or 6th, and you'll get 10% of your 4th highest study score. So because we're not scoring it and because it's a non-scored subject, we can't give you a grade that you use 10% of. So instead, the Victorian Curriculum Assessment Authority will determine your top 4 subjects. They'll take your 4th best, they'll apply 10% to that, and then they'll add that to your 5th or 6th subject. So it gives you a little bump that way. So applied beauty, services, and design fundamentals all fall under that category. Interior decoration and makeup also fall under that category. Then when we come to music industry and screen and media, we have a scored assessment option. And as I said, these can be used like any other subject. They can be used in your top 4 or your primary 4, or if you don't do as well as you thought, it can be used as your 5th or 6th subject. So we do particularly well in these areas. We outperform the state considerably. We have premier award winners in equine and also laboratory skills. So we do take highly theoretical and academic subjects very seriously because we know that a lot of students want to go to university afterwards. And at the same time, we make sure that we can maximize that in music and screen and media as well. So please just be aware of what you're choosing to study and why. For those of you who do VCAL, and it's becoming an increasingly popular segment or flagship within the Institute, you operate slightly different. You are not going to get an ATAR, but what you are going to get is units that add up to your VCAL certificate. I think it's somewhere between 14 to 16. So for every 90 hours you do with us in one of these subjects, any which one you choose, every 90 hours you'll be given 1 unit towards your VCAL. So in a year we tend to do 180 to 220 hours. So at a minimum you'll get 2 units in the first year, and then you'll get 2 units in the second year. You add it up and you've got 4 units towards your VCAL just by studying a VETDSS course. That's the end of, I guess, the general presentation. Sitting behind this is a Box Hill YouTube channel. You can see the address that's listed there now. I'll leave it up on screen, so please take your time. You can type that into your browser whenever you want. That has a list of all the course presentations for these creative areas. It will feature either a manager or a lead teacher in the presentation. They'll be going through the course, the facilities, the unit structure, any other little questions you might have, but it's just a small introduction in preparing you for next year. So please, whether you're a parent or student, check out our videos. When you go on there, please always make sure that the video you're watching has a VETDSS tag in the heading. We offer these courses to mature age students as well, so don't fall into the trap of looking at a mature age version of this course. Make sure it's got VETDSS attached to it, and then you can be guaranteed that it's one that we're talking about today. For parents that are online, classes begin from the first week of February, so that's the first Wednesday and the first Friday. That generally takes the form of an orientation. So we bring students in, we show them around, We make sure they're comfortable with the surroundings. We might get them loaded on Student Web. We might start a little bit of theory as well, but it's not a totally hectic day. What we do is we send, you've already received your expression of interest forms, which is confirmation of your enrolment. Please get those back to us within 2 weeks, otherwise you will void your enrolment. There's a waiting list of 400 students currently trying to still get into courses. So if we haven't received those within 2 weeks, we will automatically move to the next person. So get those back to us. But once that's done, you will receive a welcome letter in the new year, say middle to late Jan. It'll have a campus map. It'll have your teacher's name. It'll have where your class is, what the times are, any protective equipment that you need to bring. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure you've got the right email address with us so that we can make sure that gets sent out to you. But that will allow you to visit us on day one. Usually what we do is we have staff outside on the roads directing people and showing people where they need to go, because our campuses are quite large, but we try to make it a seamless process as much as possible. Then just a final reminder for parents in particular, we will never invoice you directly at Box Hill. So please, you're never to receive a Box Hill invoice from us. We collate all students into contracts that we send to schools. The schools then apply for subsidisation from the government. They have set prices that they can offer you as a result. It differs in independent, religious and government schools. So it's not something we can publish as a one size fits all. It really comes down to the individual school. So your school will invoice you and they are your first port of call. So if you've got questions, put them through to your career practitioner. They have access to our portal, as we've said, so they should be able to put their fingers on the information that you require as quickly as possible. And just from a workload perspective, with 3,500 students and 5,000 parents, we wouldn't be able to cope if we were also offering parents a line that they can call up. So just be aware that we are a government agency and we try to run by the smell of an oily rag and save taxpayer dollars, but it just means that we can't be all things to everyone. But that concludes, I guess, the presentation component. Please